Reporting live from Silicon Valley. More breakthroughs today as the tech industry ignites. The question
The question is, where will all this innovation take us?
Every idea is a journey. A journey inspired by insights, leading to innovation based on real-world data. From idea to implementation is a grueling path. Finding what works and doesn't. But when success comes, it changes how we live and work. You are data pioneers, the trailblazers in advanced analytics, data science, and AI. Your imagination pushes us to the cutting edge of the future, powering new customer experiences, new industries, transformed worlds. From smart cities and smart homes, to breakthroughs in healthcare, and the promise of a more intelligent, secure world. Data powers applications unimagined until now. This is what sets you apart. Today's inventors and innovators. This is what makes the possibilities of our future limitless. And no matter the project or how big your vision, the future is in your ideas, your insights, and your innovation.
Please welcome Vice President of Marketing at Hortonworks, John Kreisa.
All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's great to see you all here this morning at our 11th annual DataWorks Summit. Started as Hadoop Summit, of course. It's great to see so many familiar faces and a packed house for this event. It's my personal pleasure to be your host again at this year's DataWorks Summit. And as it turns out, we're meeting during the world's biggest sporting event. The world's biggest sporting event. And it's actually not the Super Bowl. It's actually the World Cup. The World Cup's going on right now. Fantastic games. Now, not to disappoint, of course, the U.S. did not get a team into the World Cup this year. Hugely disappointing, but there are some tremendous games. Lots of great games going on. So let's not all stampede for the door to watch the game. But I'm a huge fan, and I've really always wanted to watch it on a screen like this. It's just a tremendously big screen. In fact, I've got a clicker. I wonder if I click into... we've got the game. Fantastic. All right. Okay, I'm not going to be able to sit and watch the game. I'm going to get hooked. So we'll switch that off. That's it'd be incredible to watch it on a screen this big. The World Cup is about a huge sporting event. Of course, it generates a tremendous amount of data. That's why we're here at this conference, is to talk about data. As the world's largest sporting event, there were 3.2 billion viewers in 2014, and 32.1 million tweets were issued during the finals. And that's about 618,000 tweets per second. So a tremendous amount of data. Now, one of the teams, the winner last year, Germany, used data to measure team performance, individual player performance, to optimize their performance in 2014. Now, obviously this year, if you're following along, they've lost a match and they have their work cut out for them, so maybe they changed their algorithm, who knows. But the key message is that data is being created across every industry, including the World Cup, and it's being used to drive new business models, to drive organizations forward. So let's talk a little bit about the theme this year. The reason we're here is ideas, insights, and innovation. We're here to share ideas, to share our insights, and to learn about the innovation that's coming from within the community, and learn from other organizations that are here sharing their insights with each of you. So we definitely encourage you to share and create that sense of learning across all of the different attendees, and to really soak in across all the different things that are here for you to learn. And in fact, if you think about it, there's a tremendous number of ways for you to learn here. We've got the community showcase, which is just next door. New this year, there's the Expo Theater, kind of short little 20-minute presentations that are given by a range of community members and ecosystem members. There's the Ask Me Anything Lounge. This is also new, staffed by experts who can show and answer your questions, technical questions. And then also new, and I'll call it out, is this afternoon we're going to have Demopalooza. There's some fantastic demos that are going to be shown, so you can see some of the latest technology right up here on stage. It'll be back in this room. There'll be some drinks and some food and some fun. There'll actually be some giveaways. So definitely encourage you to come back to this room. It's at 5:40 this afternoon. So lots of opportunities to learn. So, and speaking of learn, at the conference here, more than 2,100 attendees from 32 countries. Interestingly enough, the same number of countries that are in the World Cup, across 23 different industries. So, lots of people to share with. I think the farthest attendees to travel here came from South Africa. All right. So, welcome. So, lots of people have traveled from a long way to share their insights and ideas. We couldn't put our conference on without the help and support of our generous sponsors. It's somebody who they come to share their insights with us and really add some color to the conference. So, round of applause, please, for our sponsors. And a few others. Thanks very much. So, we definitely appreciate their support and helping us make this a great conference. So, hopefully you've seen all the advertising and all the information about downloading the mobile app, and you've got that, and you've put that on your mobile phone. It's definitely the place to go to get the latest on the conference, if there's any updates or changes to schedule, and also share some insights into the mobile app. So I definitely encourage you to use your mobile phones for keeping up to date with what's going on in the conference in terms of the schedule and everything. And then importantly this year, so we're going to run a poll. We ran a poll last year. We've got some new technology to do it. We're going to use Poll Everywhere. So take out your phones if you haven't already and download the Poll EV app. You can see the instructions there. And I'm going to do a couple of live polls as we go through the conference this morning in order to gather information that our presenters backstage will use kind of really as context for how they're going to go through it. So take out the application and go ahead and load that up. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to go with the test question. So hopefully you've got your phones out, and we're going to keep it in context here with the World Cup that's going on right now. And I want you to answer who's going to win the World Cup. We've got a couple of choices up there. So I'm going to go ahead and fire it up myself, and I'll give you just a minute to go ahead and answer that. And music, please. Thank you. So you may not see your choice, but that's okay. Pick the one that you think will win, and then we'll show the results live just here behind me. So go ahead and pick your choice. So is it Argentina, also a team that was surprised so far in the first round? France, Germany, again, has their work cut out for them. Spain, another country that has its work cut out for it. Brazil, we know the power. I think they're the odds-on favorite to win the conference. Mexico, which had a great game a couple days ago. And then Iceland, surprise team, love the Viking clap. So great there. So just about 10 more seconds, put in your choice, and then we'll show the results live. And let's go ahead and see what people said. All right, so here's the results coming in live. Argentina, France, okay, Germany people still think Germany has a chance. That's interesting. But Brazil's right there. So Germany needs to win its next game if they're going to have a chance. That's pretty much going to decide it. So anyway, thanks for that. We'll come back to the polling app, so keep your phones out. Let's look at the agenda for this morning. Fairly tight agenda, just a couple of presentations. We're going to start off with Rob and Arun from Hortonworks, then Rob Thomas from IBM, Praveen from Impetus, and Brian Hopkins, which I think you'll find a very interesting presentation from Forrester. So excited about that. So now, we've already shown you this, so no surprise. You've still got your phones out. We're going to ask an actual question that we want to use as context for our presenters backstage. So let's go ahead and show that question, please. Now, I'll read this to you. How much of your data and analytics have you moved, or are you planning to move to the cloud? You've got a couple choices there. 25%, so you're going to move some of that data to the cloud. 50%, you probably move about half. And if it's not exact, don't worry, just sort of what's closest in terms of your plans. 75%, so you're going to make a fairly major move to the cloud. or 100%. You're going all in and moving everything there. And then E, which is none. You don't think you're going to have any plans. You don't have currently any plans to move anything to the cloud. So again, with my music, take your choice. And I'll give you just a minute to answer. You have your phones out, so I figure you're probably going to get this one a little bit quicker. 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%, or none. We asked the same question at DataWorks Summit in Berlin, so it's going to be very interesting to me to see the difference in answers. Okay, well, let's go ahead and see the results, please. All right, 25%, about a quarter of you are going to move 25%. A fifth are going to move half of the data. Only about 25% are going to do 75% or more of, and about a quarter of you have no plan. So very interesting. Thank you. Our presenters backstage are looking at this and can use it as context. So thank you. Let's keep going. So now it's a privilege for me to introduce our first speaker. He's going to come and talk about the new business imperative in connected communities, and that's Rob Bearden, Hortonworks co-founder and CEO. Rob, join me on stage. Thank you.
Hey. Good morning. How are y'all doing? Thank you for being here. We've already had two great examples of what a data-driven app's all about with our survey, and I think that's pretty cool. So we're very, very excited to have you here. We've got a lot of great speakers. We've got a lot of great content. We've got a lot of great sponsors, and the ecosystem is really thriving and very engaged in this conference. And we couldn't be more appreciative. And as you know, we can't do it without the ecosystem, the community, and every one of you, because without that overall open source model functioning holistically, the tech breaks down. And I think that's what we're so excited about this conference in particular. This is the 11th Hadoop conference in San Jose. It's about number 17 total. And what this conference has always been about is bringing the community and the ecosystem together to talk about what we're going to build and how we're going to innovate how data is managed. And it's been a very, very powerful model when the community and the ecosystem come together to talk about how the innovation of the tech evolves and how we're going to go do that. But what I want to focus on a little bit is why we've done it. Because all of the phenomenal work that's gone in to creating a big data platform for managing the world's data and really transforming how data is managed across the IT landscape for the next 15 or 20 years has really begun to create critical mass in terms of use case and value drivers. And it's really begun the shift of moving data away from the legacy siloed platforms toward a modern data architecture. And what that's led to and what that's enabled is very much a transformation of how data-driven business models can emerge and function. And what we're seeing now is the biggest transformation of business models since the Industrial Revolution. You know, we've spent the last 30 years trying to optimize a very procedural approach from the enterprise and how they build a product, how they sell it to their customer, and then how they optimize their supply chain. And it's been very procedural. You have to do A, B, C, and D, and you can't optimize any of that until A, B, C, and D have been run through the gauntlet, and then you figure out how can we tweak and adjust. And in the new world of connected communities, we now can bring very much transparency and high velocity between the enterprise, the customer, the product, and the supply chain. And we can understand in real time how our products are being used, how well they're performing, how much is the customer engaged, are they using it correctly, do they misunderstand it, did it break, are they frustrated, where are they in their buying cycle. And by having a connected community, we can transform the business models and how the enterprises engage with their customer, with their product, and drive efficiencies across the supply chain. But really at the center of that starts with data. And Hadoop, in the work this community's done over the last 11 years, has given the modern data architecture the ability to emerge. And it started with the work in the community, first and foremost, to bring all the legacy siloed data together under one common platform. So to take the transactional ERP, supply chain, HRM, SRM, and to be able to be a central architecture now to bring that together and get 360-degree insights and real-time insights about the data and the customer and their products. But it also gave us then the ability through the work in the community to bring that data, all the new paradigm data, the mobile, the social, the clickstream, the IoT data, and to bring it under management so that we could gain useful insights and do it with an economic that made it pragmatic to bring under management and to drive that interactive insight that created new engagements models for how we took product to market, how we made decisions about building temperature, about patient care, about logistics and transportation, how supply chains move. And that was the huge first step of the work that the community did to make Hadoop truly an enterprise viable data platform. And it has become the de facto platform for managing the new paradigm data sets, as well as being the central aggregation point for the siloed legacy transactional apps. And that now that we have all this data under management at a great economic, we now have the first step to enabling a modern data architecture that moves us away from that procedural step-to-step siloed world, fractured world, to now being able to manage the entire life cycle of data from the point of origin until it comes at rest. And so at the core and the center of gravity is Hadoop and our big data strategies. But over the last 5 years, or 4, 5, 6 years, we've seen the advent and explosion of data that's coming at us from all the streaming data sets, all the IoT and sensor and component level data that comes into the enterprise about what's happening with the product, what's happening with our customer, how's our supply chain performing. Right? We've had the advent and the evolution of then, now that we have this massive amount of data from all these different sources and we can bring it under management, we then can apply AI and machine learning models onto that so that we get always the best-in-class outcome for the most desirable response that we're trying to get to for the best-in-class business decision or customer care or logistics movement. Right? We also, obviously, with all that the cloud has evolved to become and offer as an architectural tier to process, store, and manage data, we now have the ability and have to be very mindful of how we apply the Hadoop capabilities into the modern architecture and leveraging every tier, on-prem, private cloud, multiple public clouds, and how do we make sure that we bring all of the different data sets together on one common platform. One of the companies that I really respect in what they're doing of mobilizing their customers is Marriott Corporation. And they're one of the 4 leaders in big data. And interview recently with their CEO, Arne Sorensen, and a great visionary. And he really summed it up well, I thought, in this interview. And he said, we're in an absolute war for who owns the customer. There's so many ways and abilities for our competitors to disintermediate our relationship with our customer because they have the access to know what our customers doing at any point in time in their travel cycles. And their strategy and to win their customer war is all around their platform strategy and how they manage the overall life cycle of the relationship with their customer to and through data. And I think we'll see this time and time again is what's going to separate the winners from the losers with these data-driven business models will be how the data is applied, how it's leveraged, and how quickly the enterprise can transform themselves from these very procedural, siloed interactions to be able to have real-time visibility and real-time interaction and give them the ability to manage the entire life cycle of the relationship with their customer through the data interactions that they're going to have continuously. And what that's going to give them the ability to do is create connected communities to bring real-time visibility between their customer, their product, and their supply chain. And we eliminate the siloed barriers of having to be very procedural to now being able to be very prescriptive with the best-in-class machine learning and AI models that deploy a prescriptive action as a condition or an evolution with the relationship happens. Great example of this is one of our customers. And I really want to encourage you later today, Tim Leonard from Trimble is going to be discussing their use case and how they've deployed it. He's done a tremendous job. He's a great visionary. They've done a tremendous job executing on putting a connected platform strategy in place that's completely data-driven. And I want to not steal too much of Tim's thunder, but they're a $2.65 billion company headquartered in Sunnyvale, operating in about 35 countries. They manage 4 million trucks a day and about $31 billion of freight that moves across their networks annually. And they're using the Hortonworks suite of products from NiFi, HDF, and HDP to manage the entire life cycle of their data. And they're driving that into machine learning models that leverage blockchain as the backbone for this. And what they've done is they've really transformed the overall logistics process from being completely manual to being automated and digital through that entire life cycle. And it's opened up a number of new product offerings that they've been able to deploy and new models that they've been able to allow their customers to embrace and engage. And you'll hear about the initiatives from the farm to table, from the food safety compliance guarantees that they've been able to drive. But they've done this all through very much data-driven and machine learning, very prescriptive use cases and engagement with their customers. And so now what we have to look at is, if we're going to have a modern data architecture, what's involved in that? And the requirement is we've got to be able to connect in real time the customer, the product, and the supply chain, and bring complete transparency and immediate visibility into each of the engagements that they have through the procedural cycles. And so we have to bring data under management from the point of origination, off the click stream, off the sensor, off the component, on the rolling iron, and make sure that we're managing that through its entire life cycle and can take prescriptive processing action as an event occurs, a condition changes, and apply the best in practice result against that. And then we bring it at rest and be able to drive the insight and to have the long tail view of how that historically applies against our model and our ecosystems model. And then we want to have the ability to deploy that workload and that application on the tier that's most financially and architecturally pragmatic, whether that be on-prem, whether that be on a private cloud, or whether that be across multiple public clouds. And so now I'd like to bring our co-founder, Arun Murthy, up, and he's going to talk about how we enable you to do that, and with which of our products that we're doing this with. And then through the course of the rest of the day today and tomorrow, you're going to see a number of use cases to show you how to enable this modern data architecture. So with that, Arun, if you come up and join me. Thanks, Rob. Thanks. Thanks, Rob. Morning, everyone. Exciting time. Rob talked about what we're doing from a business context
in terms of how we're enabling the customers to get value out of this data, right? I'm here to talk to you about how we do this on multiple tiers, especially with public cloud and private cloud showing up increasingly in the enterprise landscape, and how we want to help customers leverage it. While I do that, it's also, like Rob said, it's important to remember, when I talk to customers about the cloud, I generally try and help them understand that, yeah, cloud's a really important part of your strategy, but you have to look at it in the context of your overall data strategy, which also happens to be your business strategy, right? So let's take a look at how we've done this today. Our customers, start off with HTTP on-prem, and you see that on the left. And I'll talk a little bit more about sort of what I call the interaction model with Hadoop. The interaction model with Hadoop was you'd actually walk up, if you were the end user, you were doing analysis, you were doing SQL, you were doing data science, you'd walk up to an existing large shared multi-tenant cluster, and you'd submit your applications, right? So in some ways, from the end user standpoint, it was serverless, because the end user himself wasn't actually dealing with the infrastructure. It was a team who happened to be at the enterprise doing that for you, the IT itself, right? So when initially they started walking to the cloud, they kind of started to forklift that architecture and run the same architecture on the cloud, right? And in fact, we had some customers who would even run HDFS on ephemeral instances running in Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, right? So what we help them understand that we want to make sure that you leverage the pieces of the cloud, the architectures in the cloud, and the services in the cloud. And a great example of that is storage, right? You want to do the best to be able to leverage the cloud stores because they have a lot of benefits, availability, disaster recovery, geo-partitioning, and so on, that you want to leverage. So we kind of help them understand that going from on-prem to cloud, there is an IaaS architecture, which you see in the middle, right? And HDFS still there to actually do some temporary processing and so on, temporary storage. But really, you want to be using S3, ADLS, GCS as the storage of record, right? From then on, the interaction model started to change because as we went through the journey, we together with the customer understood that you can actually now leverage the economics in the cloud significantly, in a significantly different and more efficient way. And one of the ways to do that was to actually spin up workloads only when you wanted them and not run large multi-tenant clusters, right? That's kind of the architecture we landed in at the left here. So then what happened was, when you do this, you're spinning up these workloads up and down, and your data is, sort of the storage of record is, S3, ADLS, WASP. Then you want to have a shared services layer. We call it for the data lake shared services, right? Which is a box you see in the middle with some of the components from the open source projects, Atlas, Ranger, Knox, because these can now intermediate access to that data in the storage layer, and you can actually spin up the workloads as you go forward, right? So at the end of the day, what is interesting is that the interaction model with Hadoop itself changed, right? From on-prem to on the cloud. Now, equally importantly, we start to realize that wouldn't it be awesome if you could actually have a fabric that you could actually layer over all of this infrastructure that you have on-prem and on the cloud, and increasingly on multiple clouds, right? For a bunch of reasons now, whether it's geo-compliance, whether it's your favorite cloud vendor not being available in Asia or wherever the components are, there was reason to actually leverage not just your on-prem existing investments, but also multiple cloud environments. And that was the genesis of Data Plane, right? Which is, the idea was to connect it all together, have one fabric so that you can actually do consistent security and governance, and actually manage all this infrastructure in one place through one pane of glass, right? And for us, Data Plane is two pieces. As the technology side of it is, the technologist in me is always, okay, we got to do the product, but we also have to build it in a way that you can actually plug in new services into Data Plane and take advantage of all the consistency that you get from a security and a governance standpoint. So great examples are, we start off with DLM, the Data Lifecycle Manager, which helped you move data from on-prem to cloud to multiple clouds and back on-prem. And then we added Data Steward Studio, right, which allows you to discover data and sort of manage and govern it, right? So Data Plane, like I said, is two pieces. It's the fabric, it's the product, but it's also the platform with which you can actually plug in new services. And a great example is the work we've been doing with IBM to kind of plug in DSX as one of those services, right? So as a result, we've kind of come to this architecture now where you have sort of this one interaction model on-prem, which is large share multi-tenant clusters, but we have a different interaction model on the cloud, but we stitch it together using data plane and allowing customers to have consistent security and governance policies across all of these stacks, right? And that's particularly important, right? Because as you go from one cloud to another, or on-prem to on-prem, IT has just figured out how to deal with Kerberos, right? And now we got to deal with IAM on Amazon, IAM on Google. If we could actually layer that together in a consistent way, we feel like it'll actually, really add value and actually drive a lot more analytics both on-prem and on the cloud. And that's why data plane is such a big piece for us, that we've been investing so heavily for the last, couple of years. And as you probably know, we kind of went GA in October of last year. We did another rev, particularly with GDPR in mind, with DSS in May in Munich, right? So, what is fueling all this, right? Again, we're talking about the vision, but what is also fueling this is the innovation that's coming from the open source community, right? And again, I've been privileged to be part of this community, be a member of this community for 12 years now. I cannot tell you how impressed I am, even myself, in terms of the amount of innovation that's come through, which is what we kind of put it all together and shipped with HTTP 3 this week, right? If you think about the innovation that's come in, we have comprehensive cloud support across the stack, not just the native drivers for the storage, but we've done a ton of work in Hive and Atlas and Ranger and a whole bunch of places, Spark, to actually give you consistent experiences both on-prem and the cloud, in spite of the fact that there are significant architectural differences, right? On-prem, you have co-located storage. On the cloud, you have disaggregated storage. On-prem, you have Kerberos. On the cloud, you want to deal with different security models. The community has worked really hard across all of these to give you a consistent experience, and again, very thankful to the community, right? So some of the things that, again, excite me more are we've got containerization and GPU support in Yarn right now. What it means is you can actually now run really agile applications. You can have multiple versions of Spark, multiple versions of Hive, run TensorFlow with GPU support, and so on, right? Again, the SQL side, the Hive community has done an amazing job making Hive what I call a real-time database, right? Hive started off by being a SQL on HDFS layer, and it's now morphed and actually matured into a full-fledged database, including great security policies, security capabilities, column level filtering, row level filtering, and so on. And now you have things like ACID, and we did some benchmarks. We'll talk some more about it. Go to the talks. ACID on Hive now is actually as fast as not having ACID at all. It's phenomenal the amount of work that the community has put in, right? Because now you can actually do ACID both on-prem and on the cloud, on S3, on HDFS, right? Similarly, a lot of work, like I said, has gone into security and governance. The storage side is the same, right? The Hadoop and the HDFS community has brought in some key enhancements which matter at scale, right? Erasure coding. The fact that you can now have 1.5 replicas instead of 3 makes a massive difference, right? When you're dealing with tens of petabytes of data, as our customers are, right? Same thing with federation. So putting it all together, this is how we've been working, not just with the community, but also working with some great partners we have. Microsoft obviously has been a long-term partner. We just announced an expanded and extended relationship with them, where we're now not only doing HDI, which is sort of a prescriptive pass, but also now HTTP and data plane available as an IaaS offering, right, for a full-fledged HTTP experience, right? Similarly, we did a similar partnership with Google, with IBM. We've been doing a lot of work to actually bring in the IBM hosted analytics on their IBM Cloud. So as you can see, whether it's on-prem, private cloud, or public cloud, you now have the full-fledged of all of these capabilities powered by the open source community, right? Very exciting times for me. So this is all here today, right? As I stand before you, this is my 11th time here, I want to really kind of share a little bit of the vision of sort of where I see this going, right? And actually, this is a great time to get some feedback from you folks, because a lot of people here are not just people thinking of Hadoop, but people actually using Hadoop. We did a CAB yesterday, the Customer Advisory Board. Fantastic feedback. Very, very thankful. Very, very appreciative. So as we sort of stand here, I want to kind of put some ideas in your head and hopefully spark a discussion on kind of what comes next, right? To me, one of the key things is that as enterprises are sort of grappling with this expanded set of infrastructure choices, on-prem, private cloud, and public cloud, the interaction model is something that I feel we could actually do a lot more work on, right? Like I said, on-prem you have these large shared multi-tenant clusters. On-prem you have workload-specific, applications, workload-specific clusters. How do we help bring this together? So one of the thoughts we've been thinking about is the future could actually look very, very interesting, particularly when you start to think of, innovations happening in the technology space like containers, right? So we're starting to think, wouldn't it be nice if you had a consistent and identical sort of storage fabric on-prem and on the cloud? So on-prem you have HDFS today, but on the cloud you have S3, which is an object store. It would be nice to actually get something similar on-prem, right? Similarly with containers, we can actually make it look like a container fabric, much like it look EC2, right? If you have that, you can actually start to layer identical architectures, both on-prem and the cloud, right? And actually get you the same interaction model. And the interaction model is really important because that's what drives usage of the platform, right? With that, hopefully it sort of sparks some interesting, thoughts in your head. Feel free to, grab any of us, give us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And most importantly, enjoy the show. Have a great time. It's a great time of the year. Take as much as you've taken all the technology, taken the weather too, and come in and give us some feedback. Once again, thank you for coming. Rob?
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Quick update. In the second half, Senegal 2, Poland nothing. We're watching backstage, so we'll give you a snapshot. We'll keep you updated during the time. Well, anyway, so we're going to go ahead and start setting up for Rob Thomas and his team to come up, and they're going to do some demos. So we want to go ahead and set the stage up around right behind me. Thank you, guys. And I'd like to welcome Rob Thomas from IBM. He's general manager of the analytics organization, and they've built we have a terrific partnership with IBM. We're very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with them. As you know, as we're focused on the modern data architecture and managing the entire life cycle of data, what was very important is that we can then, to get truly the highest and best outcome, we have the opportunity to bring AI and machine learning to those large data sets. IBM is our strategic partner and solution for AI and machine learning, and so we want to give you some visibility into what those solutions look like. So, Rob Thomas, if you'll come join me, and thank you for coming and being part of this. Phenomenal partnership, and thank you very much.
Great to see you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Good morning. If you were here last year, on this stage, we announced an expanded relationship between IBM and Hortonworks. And our focus was around data science. How do we bring the next generation of analytics to the Hadoop ecosystem? And I'm very proud to announce that after a year of hard work, a lot of engineering, we now have hundreds of clients that are using IBM Data Science Experience along with Hortonworks. It's been a huge change in how clients are leveraging Hadoop, getting value out of their Hadoop instance. So we're very proud of this partnership and the progress we've made. But I also realized this is just the beginning, because data science is just one of the building blocks for how an organization gets to maturity around AI. Let's take an example. So in the year 1950, there was no interstate system in the United States. Getting from point to point was incredibly difficult. There was a decision to invest in the interstate highway system, and now, 80 years later, we have 48,000 miles of highways, $400 billion plus of investment. And while it's certainly changed the ability to move from city to city, things like overpasses, underpasses, bridges, reduced a lot of congestion. Maybe not here in the Bay Area yet, but that was the intent. But what's often overlooked is how it changed commerce. It didn't just change transportation, it changed commerce. Rest areas, gas stops, the whole salty snack food industry probably would not exist, at least not in its current form,
without the interstate highway system. So this connective tissue between what was before a bunch of disparate cities really revolutionized commerce. I think where we are in data today is where we were with the highway system in the 50s. It's a bunch of different silos. It's a bunch of different islands. And in order to get to this AI future, we have to think about how do we modernize the data platform, much like Rob Bearden spoke to give you access to data in ways that you've never had before. But first, think about where you are on your journey in data and analytics. Many of you have worked on the left side of this slide. You're taking cost out of your operations using data. You're modernizing your data warehouse, leveraging modern BI tools. But most organizations probably sit about in the middle, maybe to the left side. The right side is how do you move towards self-service analytics? And then ultimately, how do you get to the point of AI, where you're using AI to drive new business models, new invention for your company and in your industry? Use this slide with your teams. See if you get a view of where do we sit today as an organization. Because if you don't understand where you want to go or where you are today, it's very hard to get there. I like to say there is no AI without IA, meaning you cannot get to this AI future without the information architecture to support that. And the reason I call it a ladder is the AI ladder is about different building blocks that you have to accomplish with your data in order to get to AI. Just think of it in reverse. You can't do AI without machine learning. You can't do machine learning without analytics. And you can't do analytics without the right data and information architecture. If you're in this room, I know you're a believer in that because you've invested in Hortonworks, modernizing your data environment. But now the challenge is, how do you start to take those steps towards this new future? We decided to tackle this problem in IBM and say, how can we unite the work that we've done in data science, along with Hortonworks, to help clients move along this AI ladder? But it started with a couple key beliefs. This is our view of what's happening in the world of data and analytics. First of all, containers will revolutionize the use of data and application architectures, for that matter, in every enterprise. We've become big committers, contributors to the Kubernetes project. We believe that containers will really be the spark that sets off this era of modernization. Secondly, clients are going to modernize enterprise out. That means start where your data is and then move to the cloud as you're ready, as you're comfortable. And I'll be honest, that's a very different view than others hold in the market. Amazon actually has an 18-wheeler that comes to your office and says, we're taking all your data and moving it to the cloud. That's the very opposite of enterprise out. That's why I don't think that approach is going to work. Our strategy is modernize, enterprise out, use containers, then move your data to the cloud as you're ready. Machine learning will automate the AI ladder, help you move along those different steps. And then we believe in one architecture. As you go down the path of private cloud, it has to be the same architecture that you're delivering on public cloud. That's why we think Kubernetes offers a great common denominator for doing that. Because as you get to this future, you're going to want seamless interaction between private cloud and public cloud. In March, we announced, and in May, we released IBM Cloud Private for data. This is our attempt to grossly simplify the process of data. Think back to the highway example. We are building the interstate highway system for all your data, which is everything integrated in one place. Governance of your data embedded in there. The features of data science experience are there. And Hadoop is a first-class citizen. As part of our relationship with Hortonworks, we've prioritized integration with Hadoop, and you've seen what Hortonworks is also doing around containers as a first-class citizen as part of this architecture. We bring things like Big SQL to federate data across public cloud, private cloud, any data repository. If you want to modernize your old warehouse, and many of you do, Big SQL plus Hortonworks and a data science layer on top of that is how you accomplish that. And then we've also focused on the infrastructure level. Machine learning and AI is only as valuable as your compute infrastructure. So with Power AI and what we're doing around GPU acceleration, we enable the best possible capabilities for delivering high-performance AI. And you can actually see it happening in the market. 2 months ago, MasterCard announces the formation of a new company called Truata. Truata has to exist in this world of data privacy. MasterCard has a huge analytics business, but often creating analytic outcomes from personal credit card swipes, it can put you at odds with things like GDPR or data privacy regulation. They established Truata as a third-party company to do all of the data anonymization, all of the data privacy. It is the only entity in the world where if your data is in Truata, you're GDPR compliant. They've made it that simple. We had the opportunity to design the architecture for Truata, for how would we actually deal with data at that level of scale, not only from the credit card industry, which is 3 billion plus events a year, but any company that wants to come to Truata to ensure their GDPR compliance. So as we went to work on this architecture, we focused on the Hortonworks data platform, along with our unified governance capabilities for data masking, data privacy, and then data science experience. So how you could build machine learning models to automate many of these processes. But look, rather than hearing from me, I think sometimes it's just best to see it. And so with that, I want to introduce you to Vice President and Chief Design Officer for IBM Hybrid Cloud, Aaron Bomick. Aaron, welcome.
Thank you.
Would love to see what you have to share with everybody today.
Sure. So I'm going to set it up by saying that there are 3 huge challenges in an end-to-end data journey: finding data, trusting data, and operationalizing the data. With IBM Cloud Private for Data, we're changing the game. We are giving you the power to interact with enterprise data like never before. Let me show you how. I'm going to play the role of a data scientist, and I've been given a task to create a model to predict mortgage rate payment defaults. So I'm going to log into the platform. And right on the top, I see immediate value. I have access to tasks and functions and notifications. I also have KPIs that are meaningful to me, to my role. I could customize the experience. It's a very role-based experience for me. Moving on, I have access to the power of the platform at my fingertips. Whether it's interacting with data, my data, data that's shared with me, federated data from different sources, cloud, on-prem, data lakes, or access to different parts of the data. For example, data catalog, setting up data connections, running data transformation jobs. And eventually, when I have the data, I can analyze it to get more insights, whether through dashboarding and eventually building and operationalizing models. So all from a single platform. I'm going to start the journey by searching for the data. Now, I remember that the data I'm looking for is in Hortonworks data, but I don't remember the name. I'm going to do a search. There's no search results. Now, at this point, if I'm a data scientist, I start praying because I'm done. But with IBM Cloud Private for Data, we're changing it. We are letting you have a path out. For example, you can access new data by requesting for new data. But more importantly, you can go ahead and discover assets that are in remote data sets. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to go to the Discover Assets aspect and set up a connection. I'm going to set up a remote connection with HTTP. And I'm going to also turn on a few configurations like assigning business terms automatically. I'm going to initiate the discover process right now. And the assets are discovered. And now, if I go back and do a search again for the same thing, hopefully it shows up. Voila. We see the connection. We also see 2 different data files, 2 CSV files. And the interesting part is it's also showing me data quality. Now, this is gold for me as a data scientist. I'm getting data that's kind of trusted. So I'm going to go a little bit more and start looking into the details now. So I'm going to go and look at the relationship and the data lineage a little bit. For example, I see that the email address term is auto-assigned. This data file is governed by a policy, so it's secure data. That's lovely. I'm going to now go ahead and add this data that I trust to a project. It's a project I'm working on, so I'm going to add it on. This is a project, it's a collection of assets, notebooks, models, dashboards, so on and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and drill a little bit deeper into the data to see if I can get different insights from it to ensure that I have the right data to work with. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to see some pre-built dashboards, but I can easily go ahead and change a few data visualizations to see if I get different insights. At this time, I can also go and start a transform process. Bring in data, joins from different places, enrich my data set. So now I've sort of worked the data, I've put it in a place where I can create a model. I'm going to go back to my projects, and I'm going to start looking at my notebooks. Now, notebooks is a bread and butter for me. This is where I live. It's integrated right into the platform. A single tool. I don't need to go between tools to do my job. Here I can do several things. I can build a classification model. I can change the code, tweak the code, test it, and when I'm ready, I'm going to save it to a repository. Now, that's not all. I can follow the trail here. I'm going to go ahead and check on my deployment manager on how the deployment is doing. So it's a quick access here. I go to the deployment manager. Looks like there have been 2 deployments, and it's running pretty good. So now I feel pretty strongly that this is going to be a good model. I'm going to go ahead and try to publish it. So I go to the list of models I want to pick. Again, back to my projects, single cohesive access. I pick the model I want to publish, and it's an easy form to submit. So I'm going to give it a name. And while I'm doing that, I could also restrict the visibility to internal, external catalog, make it public, private. And when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and kickstart the publish process. It'll kickstart the workflow. And when it's approved, I can go ahead and search for it. So I'm going to search for mortgage. That was the name of the model. And I trigger the search. And it's available in the governed, secure data catalog. So there it is, folks, an end-to-end data journey from finding data, working with data, and publishing a model, all under 3 to 4 minutes. There's no other platform that can do this. And it's being done because it's an integrated, scalable, cohesive, and dare I say, a self-service platform. We have truly made data simple and accessible. Over to you, Rob.
Thanks, Arun. Hopefully that brings it to life. It's a new way of working with your enterprise data that makes it very simple, very elegant. We are very appreciative of our relationship with Hortonworks because it gives us the opportunity to deliver these types of innovations for you, clients who have put a lot of data inside Hadoop. What's most exciting to me is this is just the beginning. As we think a few years out, we see SQL the world becoming possible, where you can write a SQL query and hit any device, any server, anywhere in the world. Pervasive AI is coming. Data as utility, being able to provision any data you need in 2 minutes or less, no matter where it resides. We are just getting started on this analytics journey, and I think all of you in this room, you've taken that key first step towards modernizing what you're doing in your data environment. So you will be the leaders of this next era as we continue to modernize data and analytics and make it accessible to the world. So with that, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay. Whoop, Rob, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Okay, so get a little bit of insight into the AI ladder. Now we're going to switch topics, have another presenter come up. And, our next speaker is really kind of a thought leader in terms of data and data analytics, and really a pioneer in data management. He's the co-founder and CEO of Impetus Technologies. To come and speak with us about the foundation for corporate success in the intelligent future, welcome Praveen Kanakara. Praveen, please. Thank you.
Good morning. He missed saying one thing about my introduction. And that is, I am 118 years old. Seriously. That's the age a lot of marketeers around the world know for me. And who told them so? My favorite airline. You get it, right? And if you believe them, I'm the oldest living man, oldest living human on the planet. The next older is a year and a half younger. And who told this airline this age? Of course, I. This is an easy to remember date of birth. I didn't want to give them my true date of birth. I'm a bit of a privacy freak, so hey, here you go. They accepted the date of birth. And this was 20-some years ago when the website had first come up for this airline. Fast forward, air travel became more secure, there are more restrictions, so I had to go and give my real date of birth to the check-in system of this airline. But they haven't correlated this discrepancy. And they keep perpetuating this myth that I'm 118 years old. For 20 years, I've been getting mailers from American Association of Retired Persons. I keep getting offers for all kinds of Medicare plus plans to enroll into, retirement homes, and I'm the butt of jokes at home. So I know I can pass this off as a joke. It's a trivial thing. As a consumer, I can say, yeah, it's a big airline. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. But look from their perspective. It's an opportunity lost. And I know I'm just one of millions of flyers. But you extrapolate this across all the flyers. And I'm sure there are holes in everybody's profile. And there are marketing dollars being misspent at a massive scale. So I'm going to assert today that a unified, clear, and present view is an absolute necessity. Rob Bearden made the case for this. He also laid out a very nice architecture. And Rob Thomas also talked of you have to have your information architecture right if you have to climb up the AI ladder. But I go around the country, my companies have a lot of Fortune 500 customers, and I see this view missing. And don't get me wrong, people have made strides in several areas, several pockets of enterprise data model have really advanced, come together. People are leveraging all kinds of machine learning applications, deep learning, what have you. But there are massive gaps still remaining, largely in mainstream enterprises. And this intelligent era is already here. These models are data beasts. They feed on data unlike ever before. The more granular the data, the better the outcomes. And I don't get it. Why is it taking this long for us to realize this? Now, I know we keep talking about, we don't have enough people who know machine learning. I can tell you, in a 50-mile radius of where we are sitting, there are probably 100 companies who sell you all kinds of algorithms. Data science workbenches, all kinds of libraries and whatnot. But who's going to give you your own data? You have to really get your data act together. And I feel this is an opportunity, and if we don't treat it such, it's a massive threat. And the rate of disruption has gone up like crazy. I don't need to tell you, this is all over the news on a daily basis. The largest disruptors are expanding into newer areas every day. Search companies are trying to become automobile companies. There are new upstarts who have been born into this age of big data. they don't have this problem because their infrastructure is really modern. Look at the fear factor among mainstream enterprises. This is a recent survey conducted by New Vantage Partners. And the number of executives in very large companies, if you look at the list of companies, it's a who's who. The number of executives who are fearful of data-driven agile upstarts went up from nearly about 50% to 80% in just 1 year. Now, today's disruptors can become tomorrow's disrupted. There are no guarantees. If these disruptors also do not really make sure that their infrastructure is modern, their data infrastructure allows them to see a real-time, full, comprehensive view of their enterprise at all times, if they slip on that front, they'll fall behind. And mainstream enterprises, we tell them, we say that, oh, they're full of silos. It's like that airline. They have a marketing silo which knows one date of birth for me, and then they have a check-in silo, whatever that business unit or department is. They have my true date of birth, which is daily on the wrong side of 50. So, how did these silos come about? I have a very simple explanation. I don't know right or wrong. Decades ago, these business units, they got some transaction processing systems, and these transaction processing systems, can you go back, please? They got a little bit of analytics capability, glorified reporting, and that became a silo and worked well for them. It gave them the autonomy. There wasn't as much cross-leverage working across different business units. And this is good. This is state of the art. But they did not keep it current. And here we are. We have now this ability to consume data at massive scale. We have cheap compute. We have cheap storage. Storage is getting cheaper by the day. And now suddenly a lot of these mainstream enterprises find themselves not having unified their data. And I don't even imply how you unify your data, whether you create data gravity or you keep it where it is and you virtually integrate. I'm not recommending one way or the other. Whatever works. That's why I call it a unified view. So how do you get to this unified view? If you're a mainstream enterprises with dozens, if not hundreds of these silos, we've been into this big data revolution or this movement, if I may call it, for over a decade. There's a lot of architectural wisdom. There are architectural patterns to pick from. It's not in the scope of my conversation today. You can implement governance, security, as fine-grained security as you would like. But the biggest challenge I see is mainstream enterprises, they have those silos, dozens, hundreds, and they're already in motion. They have an operation to worry about. They're not an upstart who's architecting a business for the future. These people have to keep the lights running. They have millions, if not billions, of customers. I've seen companies, they're handling billion unique users on their websites. There are such companies I run into. And how do they unify? Who's going to migrate? Yes, all the great architectural patterns are there, but who's going to really come and help them move lock, stock, and barrel to this new modern architecture? They have such massive investments. They have created thousands and thousands of workloads. I'm blown away when I run into and we do an assessment of the number of workloads running on traditional legacy data warehouses. We run into thousands. And each workload can have thousands of queries. And I've seen queries which are a single query which was 4 pages long when you printed it out. Who's going to sit and do this manual migration? It's massively disruptive. It's a long. So which executive is going to stick their neck out to cause this to happen? They all know the writing on the wall. The future is out here. Fortunately now, there are tools available which allow you to migrate these workloads, the logic in these workloads. There are tools that semantically extract the logic out and help you immediately port them over to modern data platforms like Hadoop. And what would have taken years with hundreds, if not thousands of programmers can now be done in months. One other common problem I hear is, well, let's say if I create this view, but this view starts becoming obsolete immediately because parts of my business are shifting, moving, transforming, M&A happening. So I still have these long and expensive ETL cycles. So my view will again become obsolete. Well, I think, you look at what's really going on. We have really created massive number of productivity tools in our industry. You can create data pipelines visually now. And these pipelines can immediately be deployed on engines like Apache Spark at massive scale with elasticity. So what took months can now be done in days. Seriously, and I've seen this happen with several customers. Another major problem, major complaint I hear is, well, I brought all my data together. I've created this massive data lake or whatever people want to call it. But now my queries are not performing. There's one recent customer that I visited, and they said, we're actually migrating data back from our Hadoop cluster. They have a 1900 node cluster, back to a legacy data warehouse for better consumption. And it's an operational nightmare, but we don't have a choice. We have users screaming and yelling. Well, as I said earlier, storage prices are falling, compute prices are falling, so we have to think differently. I've seen some smart companies create many different representations of the same data set. They'll create a graph copy of the same data set for better consumption by a certain class of queries or applications. Some models like MoLAP for BI. BI is still the biggest use case for big data. I know it's not as sexy, but it is the largest use case. MoLAP had become unattractive in the era of expensive storage. Not anymore. With cheap storage, why would you not pre-process everything? Why would you not make sure that you do as little work at query time? So you can support your human users very efficiently. And I love to keep telling our customers that I think there's only one resource which is getting more and more expensive with time, and that's the cost of human time. Cost of all your other resources are falling. So I'll end by again making a case that a unified view of our data is not an option. It is an opportunity. And if we don't address, it's a threat. I would like to believe that. I think companies who do not make rapid strides will miss out on creating a foundation for this intelligent era that's already here. And they'll lose out. Thank you.
Okay, so I think if you think about the correlation between the poll that we had earlier on cloud and cloud intent, and then what Brian was talking about in terms of data fabrics and sort of the need and move there, that really is sort of predicting where we're going to go forward. And I think I would agree with them on us being in the Bronze Age of data. So let's close out here. You might be wondering why I'm wearing this puffy jacket in a place where it's probably 75 degrees outside. That would actually be, a good question. So what we have actually is a photo contest for you, and what we're going to do is give away some of these great jackets. They're very light, packed in a small little ball, so they're great here around San Francisco where there's varying weathers, and wherever you might come from, it's actually really, really comfy. So we're actually going to give 4 of these away through this contest, so it gives you an opportunity to show your creativity and share this through a Twitter photo contest. So you'll get the jacket, and how you play is you take this jacket and you have these signs, which are available at the front at the front desks and out in the lobby area there. And you take a photo of yourself anywhere or video or whatever and use the hashtag DataWorks Summit 20 DWS 18 and take a photo, and we'll select 4 winners from the contest. So I will start the contest over, and I will say, if you think about it here with the microclimates, if you're familiar with the Mark Twain quote, the coldest winter I ever spent was my summer in San Francisco. It's certainly true around here. So I will start off the contest with the obligatory Welfie. Get all of us in it here. So 2 secs. So everybody back there, wave if you would. All right, you on the left, please, wave. Yeah, thanks. All right, good. Okay, so enough of that. So do enter into the contest for your chance. Now, what do we have for the rest of the day? So we have the community showcase. We're going to take a bit of a break right now in this community showcase. It's open for the rest of the day where you can go by and get coffee, some food, visit the sponsors, hear more about what's going on within the community, see the Expo Theater. Of course, we've got a tremendous number of track sessions. You can see those available in your mobile app. We've got the Women in Big Data Lunch. Definitely don't miss that. That's a fantastic event where we'll hear some of the great things and the ways that women have been contributing to the innovations that are going on in the community. Come back here into this room for Demopalooza, where there's going to be 4 or 5 fantastic demos. There'll be some drinks, some snacks, even some giveaways and things will be going on at the Demopalooza, so that's right back in this room. And then after that, we'll have the sponsor reception. So a lot happening for the rest of the day. So with that, we'll finish the morning. I want to thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow morning. Thanks very much.